Alright, so Adam Sandler continues to fill out this Netflix contract that we first talked about when The Ridiculous Six came out at the end of 2015. And of course that went wonderfully. But then The Do-Over came out the following year, which I don't remember being that bad. But then again, I don't remember much of anything about it, period. So that's where that lies. So now he brings us this, I can't remember how many are on the contract, something from like 3 to 6 or something. So this may be it, or it may only be like halfway, I really don't remember. But, and this one I had only like just heard about, like he was on Kimmel promoting it like 5 days ago. And before that, I had no idea that he had brought out his next one, which basically like an ode to his agent or whatever. How his character is very similar to his agent in real life, or something along those lines. And of course, because we realized that he likes playing with the decades, as we saw when he set The Wedding Singer in 1985 for seemingly no other reason than to make jokes about what has changed since 1985. Charming of a movie as The Wedding Singer is. And here he goes to 1994, and obviously there's gonna be those things that don't really... I mean, there are a lot of movies that have done this now. I think back to, I don't know if anybody remembers when Pauly Shore made this movie to try to get back in everybody's graces. Pauly Shore is dead. When he has like a scene with Fred Durst where Fred Durst won't listen to his album and he says he's not going to become anybody, etc. It's already quite a dated joke, isn't it? And here they immediately kind of dive into it, like with you see billboards for like Time Cop and The Shadow in the background, and he has a scene with Arsenio, and Arsenio's got the mustache. And the thing that's kind of funny about Arsenio playing himself here, and he keeps popping... I thought that was just going to be like one bit, but he keeps popping up throughout the movie, which is fine, because, you know, we all love Arsenio. But the funny thing about it is, this is one of the... I mean, I suppose it kind of adds to whatever they were going for, but obviously, being a Sandler movie, there's going to be cameos out the asshole. And even though we're set in 1994, a lot of famous faces play themselves without bothering to not look like they do today, like 23 years after the fact. And I think Arsenio is like the only one that benefits here, because Arsenio just seems to get younger as the years go. Like, he looks older back in the 90s than he does now. And so that's just kind of a bizarre choice. I don't know if it's a joke in itself. Maybe it is. I think they just really wanted the cameos, and they sometimes would forget, oh yeah, this is set in 1994, but whatever. And with this start, we start off with this, what appears to be a wedding video, where it's just, you know, the cameo room. And it kind of starts off like when Mike Myers did that documentary a couple years ago. I think Sheb Gordon was the guy's name. It was called Supermensch. That's basically what this wedding video, these scenes feel like, where it's just a whole bunch of celebrities talking to the camera about how great Sandy Wexler is. And it's a whole array. It's like everybody from the obvious people, like, you know, Chris Rock and David Spade. Then there's, like, Lorne Michaels, and then there is, they get I just talked about Pauly Shore. He's there. And just pretty much anybody you can think of. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know how they shot this, or I assume they didn't shoot it all at the same time, but in the event that they did shoot at the same time, or at the very least looking at it from the perspective of the movie itself within, very interesting that a movie has Conan and Jay Leno in the same room. I'm very curious how that went down, but yeah, and obviously Kimmel and stuff is there. Yeah, and the problem here is that there's not really I mean, they really do like to go on that cameo thing because he loves to bring... That's, like, one of the main things about Sandler's movies is he's always bringing the same people back. Like, Nick Swartzen's in here, Kevin James. If you thought Kevin James wasn't unfunny enough, he plays a ventriloquist now. Comedy gold. And the thing here is that I think there are some cases where it's supposed to be a joke in itself who is in it. I am... Obviously, the one I'm really jumping to here is that throughout the movie, he lives in this house, kind of, but it actually belongs to an unseen voice throughout the movie. And we can all figure out this unseen voice is Rob Schneider's voice, putting on another accent, because of course he is. And when we get towards the end, and his face is finally revealed, it's this really big reveal, as if it's supposed to be some big surprise that this dude ended up being Rob Schneider. And I would think that if you're bothering to... Well, you know, I don't know. What I was about to say just now was, if you're bothering to watch Sandy Wexler, you probably know the layout of every Sandler movie and every single face that pops up in them. But come to think of it, with all of the negative attention he's been getting, with how shitty his movies have gotten, maybe you're more likely to have not seen Sandy Wexler if you have seen all of his other movies. I guess it depends on who you are. And there's... They also kind of continue to play on the thing where this character of his is... Well, for starters, it's Sandler putting on a voice. And I honestly can't remember the last good Sandler movie where he was doing some kind of over-the-top voice. He's also doing... I couldn't help but wonder, because there's one talk show host here who is absent, and I couldn't help but wonder if maybe they were taking a shot at somebody by the fact... I know Sandy Wexler's based on, like, a real dude, more or less, but there's also this... The whole running joke with him is that he fake laughs and just claps at every single thing that he hears. If you want to take that as a Fallon joke, you can. It's very possible, you know. And so he's going around, and this is how they're introducing his character. He's doing this voice, and he's doing a very over-the-top laugh, and he's clapping. It's a matter of how much that's going to get to you, how you're going to handle this movie, I think. Like, in the first 20 minutes, you should know, if that. There's one bizarre scene that I don't think is an intentional reference, but I'm just going to take it as one. They're playing up this joke. They really, really, really want to introduce this trait of his, where he fake laughs and claps at everything. And one of the first things he does in this montage of him fake laughing and clapping at stuff is he goes to see Problem Child. What's the first thing you think of when you see a dude walk into a theater that's in the middle of playing Problem Child, and you raise a ruckus by laughing in an over-the-top manner? I don't think Sandy Wexler was supposed to be evoking Max Cady in this scene, but the movie would have taken some really interesting directions if he had been. So yeah, that's probably just something they didn't think about, but it just was weird to me. That's such a very specific thing to be in two movies that are this different. But okay, I've gone on too long. There's as far as doing this whole Netflix thing, you kind of think, well, first off, I suppose they gave him some free reign, because if you remember, if you were watching back then, I was really up in arms about the fact that The Ridiculous Six was 2 hours long. Because it's just, I don't know how they even, because they seem like they're straining for jokes so often. It is so weird how much they can stretch a movie out. This one is 2 hours and 10 minutes. I seriously about pissed myself when I learned that. Like, he's taken an Apatow. Apatow's in the room at the wedding, too. And it's almost like he's trying to, you know, get to Apatow levels of, let's just see how much we can stretch this shit. So, yeah. And then once we get to that point, also, doing this whole Netflix thing, you can kind of tell that they probably don't really need a massive budget, per se. Um, but as far as the, Sandler's movies at least did look like movies at one point. As opposed to, the home videos with his friends that people say that grown-ups too are blended are, which they're pretty much right about. And here, it seems like his movies are getting more and more poorly made, like on a technical aspect as they go. There is, because not only are we at 2 hours and 10 minutes here, but there is a moment in the, like, a whole bunch in the movie where it's kind of going and we get all our character introductions and they introduce all the traits and all the other shit they want to throw at us because it's going to come back again and again and again. But once it gets to the point when he signs up Jennifer Hudson and it looks like this movie's about to take off and have a plot of sorts for as long as I can hold on to it, suddenly it's like they lost control of the movie or something because the editing gets really erratic and there is, like, scenes that seem to just abruptly stop. Like, they like, to the point where you don't even have time to realize if it even reached a punchline or not, or if it just abruptly cut off. And that happens for a while, and then it finally kind of seems to find some footing again. But then it just keeps going in a whole bunch of different places to try to really jack up its runtime. Because there's only so many things you can do with this concept, and it tries to do those, plus a whole bunch of other shit just to fit all of his friends and recognizable faces into the movie. And going on, yes, the whole Jennifer Hudson, yeah. So he goes in, and it's his job. He finally finds somebody with real talent amongst the shitty people he works for, like this failed stunt performer in Swartzen and Kevin James's shitty ventriloquist. And it just goes on and on. But then he finally finds somebody with talent in Jennifer Hudson, and you think that might be the plot, but no, this is actually a love story. Yeah, if there is one couple in movies that I was always wanting to see put on the screen, because it was like, yes, that is such a totally believable couple. I will absolutely root for them to get together. I will be so sad when it looks like they won't, when she goes off and does her own thing, but I will be so happy when their chemistry just sets the world on fire, just sets the screen ablaze, and just brings out this whole romantic story in this wonderful little bow. And of course, that couple would be Jennifer Hudson and Adam Sandler. That speaks for itself. Then we have stuff like, there's basically the whole concept is a little questionable. Because the whole setup here is, this is basically one big in-joke in regards to Sandler's agent in real life. And you kind of have to question, who exactly is this movie made for? Because if this character does pretty much anything, Sandler and his buddies will likely find it hilarious, much more hilarious than any audience could, because they know who this guy is personally and have spent years with him. That's a whole lot of stuff that the creators of this movie probably think is comedy gold that an audience is not going to care about. And you can kind of see in that where a problem might lie when this is a character we have to spend 2 hours and 10 minutes with and find hilarious as well as heartwarming and sympathetic and all that other shit. A character who happens to be a pathological liar as well. Not necessarily in a totally, completely harmful sense, but this character's got a lot of things going against him that we have to ultimately love, and that's kind of a hard thing to do, especially when it's Sandler doing a fucking voice. Like, Zohan, that's my boy. Has this ever really worked in his favor, putting on these over-the-top voices? Unless he's in a movie for, like, 20 seconds. Like, we still occasionally quote his character in The Hot Chick with the, if you want, you can put your weed in there. That never gets old, but... But as far as a lead character, he's best kind of sticking with his own thing here. And obviously what they really want to do here, what seems to be the main object here, apart from just ribbing this agent or whatever, is to have this comedic look on the industry, or in this case multiple industries, because he goes in so many different directions. Because obviously he's an agent for an actress who he keeps screwing over. Then there is, when he gets involved with Jennifer Hudson, there's this thing on the music industry where it basically turns into Be Cool. And then Terry Crews comes in when he's done with Jennifer Hudson, because they, like, do their little go our separate ways thing because we need conflict. There's, like, over an hour of the movie left, too, when that happens. So then when Terry Crews comes in, they do this whole wrestling bit. Which is not as good as it sounds, because when you look at the way they approach the movie industry, the music industry, and the wrestling industry, and whatever the fuck else they brought into this, none of these things are really dealt with in, like, a clever way. Like, thinking about the music industry, I was going back to Beyond the Lights a couple years ago, where it was this really basic movie, and it was just, a star is born, a star falls and rises again, etc. story. But it had a really realistic look at the industry, or something like Pop Star that does it in this big, spoof kind of way. This movie really doesn't have any clever or satirical way to look at these industries. They're just there, with shitty jokes thrown in within them, but not necessarily about them. And then that just keeps leaving you wondering, what's the point of all this again? Because it obviously doesn't want to give you too much of a realistic look at it. And being the kind of movie it is, if it is trying to show you the industry, it's almost like that way of being comedic by way of showing you the realism because of just how absurd it all is. It's got none of this. It's just there. And it has nothing new to offer to any of this at all. I think that's a really big problem it's got going for it. But then there are these moments where, obviously, we have a 2-hour and 10-minute runtime, so there's going to be a lot of jokes, a lot of which probably run on and on and on. Because I was just talking about, weirdly enough, there's a big section of the movie where it feels like scenes are just abruptly cutting themselves off. Well, to go against that, because it's like, oh no, these scenes are getting too short. Let's make them too long now. So this is definitely going to be one of those movies that has scenes. The Schneider bit that keeps coming in and out is a big culprit in this. Where a joke will just go on and on and on and on, but the scene goes on for so long, you kind of wonder, like, it's almost like you're waiting for a punchline, because you think it's going to go on and on and on and on and on, and then the scene's going to have, like, a payoff punchline or whatever, but then the scene just ends, and you're like, oh, I think that whole scene was the joke, only I'm not realizing that till after it's over. And while that can be funny if it's done right, that's never accomplished here. And then there's stuff that just kind of, I don't even know why they're in there, because I think it's supposed to be some comedic scene, but there's this comedian he keeps popping up in the movie that he just hangs out with, who he's supposed to be representing, which he does poorly. And the idea that keeps coming back is this guy either keeps getting his jokes stolen, or he gets beat by Martin Lawrence in Star Search or whatever. And then it's this scene when you can sense just by the way it's done, it's supposed to be like this comedic back and forth or something. But they pull up and they hear Jennifer Hudson on the radio, and he's trying to figure out which station it's on, because they're hearing it from another car. So they look over there, and the woman turns around, and she's hot. So the comedian starts to hit on her. I think that's supposed to be its own joke. And then while he's trying to hit on her, Sandy's trying to figure out which station she's listening to. And she can't hear him, she can't understand him, then she makes fun of his voice, and then she drives off. And that's like its own bit. I don't know where that was going, because the very next scene is Sandy doing what he should have done from the get-go, just flipping through the stations till he found it. But for some reason before that we had to have this whole little number with the comedian and this woman and him and the back and forth and the making fun of his voice thing that just serves no purpose at all. So yeah, there's that. And then there's some jokes. Well, first off, there's some jokes that are lifted. Like there's a joke when they're at a party and they're, you know, looking for a get-together and they're saying, this might be an Arsenio scene, where he's talking about, we're going to get together with O.J. Simpson, Phil Spector, and Robert Blake, and they're really good guys, we're going to hang out with them. It's like, because we know what that is. That is an exact joke. Remember the Lady Killers joke that Paul Rudd made in Anchorman 2? Yeah, that's kind of that joke, guys. Like, I think they even used the same people. But then there are jokes, if you want to call them that are just, like, he was really trying to go, I guess he wanted something over the top, just like from out of nowhere. But sometimes it gets so over the top, you're just like, once again, it serves no purpose. The scene I'm referring to is when Jennifer Hudson is being terrorized by a raccoon. And she wants to, this is just from out of nowhere in the movie, by the way, just right in the middle of this movie that's supposed to be some take on Hollywood or the music industry or whatever. And so he comes over, and he's got like a bat, and he's looking for whoever's making all the noise, and the raccoon jumps out of the tree, and he hits the raccoon with the bat in midair, and it just explodes in this bloody Tarantino-like mess. And that has nothing to do with anything after it. It maybe a little bit, because it's an excuse for him to take his clothes off because he gets blood on them. I get it if you want to... no, I don't. I don't get it, actually. It's... like, I understand if you just want to throw something over the top in there, but it would kind of make sense if there was something kind of... like, maybe they just want it to be this totally random thing. But no, I just have no idea why the fuck that's in there. And it has no... it does not belong here at all, and does not fit the tone of anything around it. In the entire, not just the scenes around it, the entire movie around it. That scene is just makes no sense that it exists. So I do not know what that was. And then it's, yeah, this is one of those movies where, as I was talking about, they think they can bank on certain jokes, so they just make a joke, and then they keep bringing it back like it's going to be funnier every time. Like Swardson and the Bird. But when these things aren't really that funny the first time, every time it comes back is only going to hurt more. And they do that with, like every character has their own running joke. And that's just not good. There are a couple of jokes that are particularly, like, they're running jokes too, that kind of work. Like, every now and then they bring up this evasive client, Alfred, that Sandy once had that he had a falling out with, and he doesn't want to recreate what happened with this Alfred. And who this Alfred is the payoff to something. And that, I did like that. And then there is, you have to kind of muster through this horrible end credit sequence where Sandler sings at the end in his character's voice. But if you can sit through that, you will be repaid greatly when Mike Judge comes in to save the day. Like, if you can get through that first part of the credits, when it gets to the point when the credits roll, you will be rewarded. So try to stick around for that if you can make it that far. So, yeah, and then, of course, once we get to the end, after the movie is dragged on for this long in so many different directions, it does something just unfathomable, really, where after we've dragged on all this time and we've done all this stuff, the ending is so incredibly rushed after all this time. Like, they just very clean-cut, very, very easy, have a huge conflict that they just throw away so they can end it. The commitment is real, people, let me tell you. So, yeah, that's the thing, is, a lot of people, Sandler, while having a lot of hate thrown his way, also is having his defenders starting to come out when, like, you know, like when The Do-Over came out and stuff, people were kind of saying, we're probably blowing it out of proportion, and he's not always that bad, and he's in real life, like, when he's being interviewed or something, he's still really funny, which just makes his movies now all the more, you know, baffling. Because we know he's still funny, but these movies just are not doing it. And the thing here is that when people praise stuff like The Do-Over, I've heard a few positive things said about this over the past couple of days, it's usually, it's okay. It's always the same fucking comment. There's people who try to make a point by asking a question and then answering it, and one's no and one's sure. Is it an Oscar caliber movie? No. Is it entertaining and easy to watch? Of course! Yeah, you do not have to stress this. Nobody goes into a Sandler comedy saying, I expect him to get, you know, Oscar nominations for this. But we would like something that's not just being fucking lazy, or just completely inane and terrible. And the thing about this is, let's say that you look at these past couple of movies and you say, well, you know, they're okay. There's nothing particularly offensive about them. They're just here and then they're gone. And you think, well, that's good, because usually, you know, lately his movies completely suck ass. But that might be a bigger problem, because when your movie is as bad and just absolutely dreadful and just soul-crushing as something like Grown Ups 2, or The Ridiculous Six, or Zohan, or anything like that, there's at least something to talk about. And there's something to remember. Like, I think back to Grown Ups 2, and I think, I remember that fucking scene. I can't fucking stand that scene. I hate it so goddamn much. I think back to Ridiculous Six, and I think that was just the stupidest goddamn bullshit, to the point that I just want to tear my own head off and crush it in my fingers. But you have a reaction to it, at least. Something that passionate. With something like Sandy Wexler, it is so forgettable and so pointless and just such a complete waste of time, it's probably more offensive. Because it's 2 hours and 10 minutes of your life that you're not going to remember next week. It's like, at least I remember the time I spent with Grown Ups 2, The Ridiculous Six, etc. So, yeah. That's a really big problem. That's its biggest problem. Like, I would have preferred if Sandy Wexler was memorably dreadful and really, really got me enraged. But no, it's just fucking there. So, which may actually be worse. It's hard to say. So, that's what that is. So, I will see, once again, I have, like, there's a health crisis in the family, so I missed out on The Fate of the Furious this past weekend, but I will, one way or the other, see it now, because I'm really craving it now. And yeah, I'll do another Versus. I think I'm going to do, I don't know if it'll be the exact next one I do, but I know I'm going to do like a courtroom drama one, so. Not two that are necessarily related, but just my two favorite courtroom dramas, basically. Weirdly enough, none of which are Grisham. So, yeah, in the meantime, I guess, if you're still interested, you can look out for all that stuff. Yeah, hopefully there's no, technical problems or anything in between then, so, yeah.